The Enterprise lost 3 people at Rigel 7 5 years ago. Lieutenant Ortegas's quarters are all gold, and Ensign Uhura has oatmeal for breakfast every day. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 4, Among the Lotus Eaters, written by Kirsten Beyer and Davy Perez, directed by Eduardo Sanchez. And we are so freaking lucky. What a coincidence. We have a very special guest today. It is Davy Perez. How you doing today, Davy?
I'm good. I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me back. I love being here and appreciate the chance to just talk about Trek, which we all love. So it's great.
Yeah, we cannot wait. Yeah, this is great.
Before this is why I come back. I just got to hear that.
Let's give a very special thanks very quickly to our good friend Anna Post for sponsoring this entire season of reviews. Thank you very much, Anna, and congratulations on that their new baby. All right, let's have some fun here. Davy, this is your third episode that you've written out of 4. Theoretically, IMDb does tell us that you've written also episode 8 of the 4th season. We don't have to get into that, but just to give everybody a bit of reference, in season 1, you wrote Memento Mori and All Those Who Wander. So everybody that's pissed about Hemmer dying,
right?
You're the Gorn specialist. Both of those were the 2 Gorn episodes of the season, right?
Correct. Yeah, I was responsible for running the Gorn hub of stories.
Gorn hub, yeah, love the pun. This was one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, thank you,
Davey. This was one of the best episodes I've watched. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Strange New Worlds is probably, yes, it is the best new show out there. It's just knocking it off the park. The first 2 seasons have been just so fun to watch. And this particular episode, Davey, I thought you really killed it with this storyline because it felt like what I like, which is classical kind of Twilight Zone type of original series type writing. And that's what I felt when I watched this episode. I suspended all my questions and believe it. I threw everything out of the window and I just said, let me go with the story and be in the moment. Right. Just like the characters were. And so that's exactly what I did. And I went on the ride with them. And I felt like you took us on a great ride this episode. Where did it kind of, start for you in the development?
I mean, thank you. First of all, those are very kind words. And I share all the accolades, of course, with Kirsten and the rest of the writer's room. For me, that type of Twilight Zone writing is just, I love that. I love when you can scratch at something, but what's really cool is for me, like I'm always trying to entertain first and then message as part of that entertainment. And when you can get both of those firing, then you just feel like it's something special and something fun. And I know we wanted to go back to Rigel 7 because we had talked about like making a big Pike story and, revisiting the Kalar, and Kiva would always talk about that big castle, and so visually and like for it to be a place, and then in talking about why we would go back and the stories to come back, we needed something sci-fi. We needed something that was just not going to go back and do a rehash of a fan service of a speech that the original Pike had from the cage. It was like there needed to be its own purpose, and there was a lot of discussion. And once we sort of found the memory loss in the room, we all sparked to the idea. But doing that it's an extremely difficult type of thing to really nail, and it could go very wrong, or it could go sort of like confusing very quickly. And so we had a lot of conversations about the stages of it, and but then ultimately, I can't really recall where it came from because all these ideas, it is a writer's room, and myself and Kirsten, we get lucky enough to sort of bring it to life. the idea of inequity, that some people with memories will just have better station in life than the people without. And that's when we knew, oh, sci-fi allegory. Like, now we could talk about an issue without hammering the issue, without making the whole episode about that issue. We could talk about inequity. There's there's a sci-fi piece, there's a social piece. Now let's make that fun, and that, I think that's, as much as I can remember, the sort of recipe for that episode.
Davey, by the way, that's very close, Cirroc, to what I was going to ask him initially, which is just how these shows get conceptualized initially. But Davey, I just wanted to tell you that about midway through this episode, I thought, this is the most Star Trek episode of Strange New Worlds so far for me. This felt like original series Star Trek storytelling, and I mean that in the most complimentary way, because original series, I think that's what really made it, was the storytelling, was how everything was novel, everything was an idea, an allegory, and it was, and this felt to me extremely Star Trek original series in its purest form. And so I just wanted to make sure that that's very clear to me, that it really stood out. But yeah, just a little bit more about how these concepts get formed in the writer's room. Do you first start off with, I want to do this kind of episode or that kind of episode, and then fit the Star Trek around it? Or are you just writing Star Trek episodes first and primarily, and then seeing if you can angle them into different themes or genres? Because Strange New Worlds does dip your toes quite a bit into different genres.
I think it would be the first. It would be the first one. Like at the beginning of the season, and we did it for season 3. We meaning the writers' room, just sit there and talk about what are the genres that we haven't done yet. What are the genres that we want to revisit? What are fun about genres that Trek always does? And we get a list of about like 15 really, and we got to whittle that down to 10, and then we start to pitch around those 10, and the conversations kind of go hand in hand, because you start talking about the genre, and then you talk about how Trek has done that genre before, and what have the episodes that we've liked, or the episodes that didn't quite pull it off, and so it kind of it is genre then Trek, but they're very close. And like with this season, it was epic space adventure, the court story, and some of those were sort of already kind of lined up based on what we were inheriting from season 1. We had the time travel adventure, which was a lot of fun. And to your point, there is a point when we're taking these real big swings, and we're doing all these genres where we go, where's the Trek episode? Where's the genre that is Trek first, and then like Trek, and that's kind of what this was becoming when we were talking about it. That's why we started to say, well, what is Trek Rigel 7? What is Trek the Captain story? What is and in that we then said, well, Swords and Sandals, the Kalar have this kind of like Bronze Age society, so there's a little bit of that. The Man Who Would Be King, obviously that storyline is in a piece of it is in this episode, and and then those are the kinds of things that I love too. I grew up watching the Star Trek that kind of teaches you a lesson, and you go, or you take away, and so I do like writing action and adventure, but if I can do that other layer, that's always fun for me too. And Kirsten obviously is Trek royalty, and she's written novels and written on all the shows that she's been on. So writing the episode with her and having just being able to talk about canon and where we're going to bend it and where we're going to stay true, and the pilot story and that piece of Ortega's, to be able to tell that as representing my Latin community, that was awesome as well. So it was for me just a fun, like firing on all cylinders kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Davey, I like when I'm watching these episodes or an episode in general, and there's something that plays out in the beginning of the episode that's relevant later in the episode. It's kind of like a foreshadow or a callback. And in this episode, I felt like number one, the medallion that Pike was gifted was something that would become, instrumental in the storyline. Another great, to me, just that's great writing. And the other time that was done was with Ortega's kind of wanting to show off her piloting skills on the runabout, going down to the planet, and then getting shut down on that opportunity by Pike, but that being a recall back to being the pilot that saves, everything at the end of the day. So I love those kinds of writing maneuvers, and I always wonder how those things kind of come about, or do they come backwards? Is it like, oh, I want Ortegas to be the one that pilots this, and then so we're going to make her miss an opportunity earlier on, or does it happen the other way around? I'm really interested about how those callbacks or those foreshadowing moments are like incorporated in the script.
Yeah. Well, those are character moments, really. And so when we are talking about the character as we're breaking the episode, so we get the genre, we get the concept, we start talking about the general plot, right? The people on the planet, the people in the castle, and then we start talking about the characters and their experiences, and then that's when you sort of get into how is this character going to experience this story, and what are we going to learn from it? And so the things like the medallion, we do talk about those things in the room, and we knew this was going to be sort of at a certain point, this was going to be a chance to highlight Ortegas and why she's so important to the Enterprise, and why it wouldn't be smart to actually have her on a away mission, and also a personal story for how important am I if I'm just the person who's always driving, if I'm just the person who's always doing that one thing, and that one thing gets a little boring, like how important am I really to the success of this? And so that became a way to sort of understand that on a personal level. And then you'd say, well, how do I tell that story? And it's storytelling, really. I think because we're episodic, we get to pull those things off, and it's like in a serialized show, that medallion or that little away mission moment might have come 3 episodes ago or 2 episodes ago. And then you have to remember that, oh, she's been dealing with this, but you have like a certain amount of real estate. And it's like, you got to just find that moment that can express that to the audience so that they understand it, have it be elegant, so you're not hitting them over the head with it. And so when it comes back later, it does feel like a satisfying, oh, I tracked this and I understand it and now I get it, versus, there's 2 extremes that you never want. I don't know why this is happening, why this is important, or yeah, I saw that coming. Gee, thanks for telling me that 20 minutes ago. And if you can kind of ride the wave between those 2, I think that's where you're getting, satisfying storytelling.
You know where that worked really well for me? Yeah. When towards the end, I started to think, okay, I think I know what's going to happen with the older guy, Luke. He's going to go in there and he's going to remember. Here's the question. Will he want to remember, or will he choose to forget? And that's what made me go and just kind of lean in, because that's got to be a really interesting thing. Was there a moment where you remember discussing that? Should we have him remember, or should we have him forget, or was it just always set in stone?
I think we discussed a lot of it, and I think that particular piece of it in the writing, I think a lot of it was discovered, because I think it was known that he was going to go in and start remembering stuff, and we decided that as a room. But how that was going to play out, I think the first version wasn't quite deep enough, and so we started scratching at that a little bit more in the writing process, the notes process as well. And I mean, the thing that you talk about, I do love that, because I respect audiences, and like myself, I'm a viewer who has watched a lot and written a lot. And so at some point I go, I think I know where they're going with this. So I tend to respect that in a viewer and not try to hide too much. But what I hope to do is like, okay, I'm going to tell you that you're right, but then I'm going to take a left turn that you didn't see coming. Yes, you were right. Like that was so planted, and yes, like we can all see that, but you didn't see it's like a magic trick, but you didn't see the other thing that's about to land on you. And that's the emotional piece of it, and I feel like if and when we're able to pull that off, then the writing is getting really good.
Yeah, this episode, and I want to give you guys your kudos again, Davey. You and Kristen really knocked this one out of the park for me because I found myself at some point like teared up, and I was trying to hold back tears a little bit.
Yeah, I got you, Cirroc. I got you.
Yeah, you got me. You got me, man. And I always try to hide that. I'm like, no, I'm all right. I'm okay.
Yeah.
It was kind of like it was special to see Pike fighting for his friends and for his team and for his memories, and also using his captain leadership skills in their raw form to kind of get them out of this situation. That was another great Pike episode because we haven't got much Pike in the beginning of this season so far. We found out that he was dealing with a child that had just been born. So he wasn't heavily featured in these first episodes. So seeing him now and watching him really is a treat. It's a treat. But what is also a treat is the writing, because once again, like I said, I found myself tearing up. The scene where the old man, says he remembers that he had a family, and those emotions kind of brought back a lot for me. This kind of made me think about Alzheimer's in a way that I never think about it before, right? Wow. It kind of put it in a perspective for me where I'm like, oh, this is what Alzheimer's is like, and this is, it's like waking up, not, in this kind of mindset. And did any of that have a play? Any one of you who've had experiences dealing with relatives like I have, who's dealt with Alzheimer's?
Yeah, no, there was. It's interesting because that something has the potential to be emotional for an audience when it's emotional for yourself. And there was conversations of people and their personal experiences and how tough that is, and how and then Reed Birney himself, the actor who played Luke, would just knock it out of the park as well. And just the idea of the innocence of lack of knowing, but also the frustration of trying to reach that person, and then the moments of lucidity and what those mean. All of those were a factor. And then family was very much a big theme. And you mentioned Anson just had his baby, and yes, that's why he was very light. And this was, okay, you're back. And then we hit him with this sort of story of a father whose son went missing, and there's no coincidence that Zacharias is, my son's name Zachariah, and the left behind, surrogate son figure is Zacharias here. So I was writing from a personal place of, as a father, when you fail and you're just trying to find the right thing to do, and then sometimes you don't know the right thing, but you're just figuring it out, and you're hoping that in the end you guys come together and you land somewhere where you can see eye to eye. So it every little bit of the subtext of the personal relationships was dripping with some informed piece of one of us talking about something personal, or even just not even talking about it out loud, just imbuing the pages and the scenes with it.
It's amazing.
You could feel it. You could feel it when you're watching it.
I just want to say very quickly, when you said Pike in his raw form, I'm like, that is a very good word for him right there, raw. In that moment when he's just memoryless and kind of directionless, but he's just, the uncooked Pike is feeling his way through. That was really like that use of the word.
And he's so protective that he's actually overly aggressive, and that's it was a moment where Pike could have lost himself completely and fully had he not gotten himself back because he was inside the castle. And that was like, I give it to Anson for playing that so elegantly, because on the page there's words that you hope people get, and there's an idea, and then someone like him gets that, and it's like, I see what you mean, let me show you what I'm going to do with it. And you're like, yes, that was awesome, and we only needed a couple takes of that. Great. So it really is a good marriage of, like, as you guys are saying, from concept to the page to then execution. And so when you could get all on a show like ours, we benefit from having a lot of people, even on the production side. And we just, everyone loves the kind of stories we're telling, and so it kind of comes across on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to add the balance that was well achieved, both by the writing and also the director, Eduardo Sanchez. The balance. I felt like everybody got some story in this episode. Mbenga got his moment.
Yeah.
Laan got a big moment. Pike had his moment, obviously. Uhura had a big chunk of the scene where she stole it for a second, going through what she was feeling. As Spock was great when he kind of looked at Ortegas and said, like, I believe you, like, I trust you. That moment where he just kind of had to suspend his whole logical examination of everything.
Right.
Say, I'm going to go off of emotions and feelings. So I love the way you spread out. It makes us feel like the crew has that tightness together, that bond when you see moments between everybody and everybody's getting their shine.
Absolutely. And it speaks towards the amazing cast that we have, and also keeping an eye to detail, the directing, and in the writing. No moment is a throwaway moment, right? When you have these amazing toys to play with, and you're like, I know I can give her that one line, and it's going to be a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's at that point it's just fun, And you mentioned the moment with Spock, and they might only have like 2 or 3 beats, but you just set them up, and it's like, okay, I'm going to give him a beef with her in the hallway about not being able to read the room, and then later he'll read the room, and like just that one little A side, B side, it makes those moments kind of satisfying, and
when Ortegas comes off the elevator and the door opens to the quarters floor that she's on, and everybody's walking around like,
yeah.
And you see the nurse, when you see Jess Bush kind of look at her like she doesn't know her, and I was like, well, this is this great moment in this episode that was filled with great moments.
Jess, just off that look, and you're feeling it, right? And Melissa, I mean, gotta give it up to her. Like she crushed the Ortega storyline.
Yes.
And it's fun, right? Where everyone, you're going to give them the ball this week, and they're going to go and they're going to dunk it. You're like, great, this is, and everyone around them is going to support them. And like you said, the Jess Bush moment, or even the having Babs doing the Mbenga and Chrissy doing the lawn, sort of like within that story, it has its own little moments of them dealing with, and what I like
call back to one of these, call back to
get one of those.
Can we just ask you, because that was one of my questions, what is this? This is the second time we've seen this. Is this something we're going to find out later, or can we?
We should. I would think so. I don't know how much I want to reveal about this. I just know it's meaningful. It's like their weekend in Vegas or something. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah. You had to be there type of thing.
Right. And what's fun about that? Like, that was something I think we found in production. I think in the blocking, or so at some point, we were talking, oh wait, you guys, because everyone, they love being in scenes with each other. They all, whoever you partner, they always say, last time we had a scene with this. And then I think they were talking about the scene, and they were mentioning that, and I said, you guys should do that again, and Eduardo was like, yeah, that's great. And so that we, once we sort of realized that could be part of the story for them, then it sort of informed how they were looking out for each other. It's something different, sort of like got into the subtext of it all. It is cool, and that the two of them were characters that have a trauma, and they're carrying something inside of them, and then their perspectives on well that's going to be gone because you're not going to have that memory, but is it going to live in you emotionally?
Mm-hmm. David. Right. I just wanted to point out something that I noticed that I really appreciate within the writing. It's this next level writing that you get in some shows, you don't get it in others. Sometimes you land on a planet, and you visit a courtyard and kids are playing hacky sack. Somebody else is carrying a basket of fruit or whatever in Star Trek. But the next level, and then somebody comes and welcomes them. The next level,
they step on some flowers by accident.
That's right. But sometimes we get this next level writing, which is you get these added colloquialisms. You like write a language for the episode in a way. And, we had the words like the forgetting, but not just adding a couple new terms in this episode, but also just their fashion of speech is a little bit different. Sometimes you get extreme versions of it, like Aaron Waltke's instant classic on the Prodigy episode with the Enterpriseians. Or in a Voyager episode, I can't remember what it was called, but Chakotay's on a planet and he's like, "You'll have to nully me first." They're saying nully instead of kill. But is that like a fun, deliberate thing that you're really working on, or does it just come naturally when you are trying to kind of harness what this group of people are like or how they talk?
Yeah.
Well, I think we are mindful of that. Because there is such a history of it, and there are so many great departments, the Bernadette in costumes and Jonathan in production design, who ask a lot of questions, and you give them as much information as you can and about your vision for it, and then they go off and start designing and showing you. And the costumes were very much something that we had talked about being, we wanted to be Bronze Age, but we're kind of tired of Western ideology, Bronze Age, so we went with the more Mongolian Eastern. And I had sort of talked about, could we go the Aztec route, but then based on the source material, that was kind of like too far apart. So it was like, well, they look kind of like Cossacks a bit in that first the cage. So we thought, okay, let's focus on that. And so, we try to bring veracity to just the visuals of it. And then you mentioned the language, and the mythology of it. There is something like you want to imbue it with a realism, and also you want it to not be something that we've heard so many times before, but somehow just seem like right and familiar, and I like the forgetting. I don't know where that came from, to be honest with you, but I just know that in the writing of it and in the notes process of it all, there was this language that we started using as a shorthand that then became what it is. And I think I do give it up to Henry, who pushed me, because at one point it wasn't a totem, it was something else. And he was like, well, that's sort of like, everyone has a book or everyone has a Bible. Like, can you find something that's sort of unique? And then I went and was researching with Kirsten indigenous peoples and how they put their history on totems. And I was like, that's it. That's great. It's a totem now versus like tablets. I think it was tablets at one time. And so it is a mixture of just like everyone pushing each other and mentioning, okay, that's cool, but can you do it better? And could you do it more unique?
Mm-hmm. That was an image of the source material right there.
Yeah, I saw that. The dude with the crooked teeth and the Cossack hat.
Yeah. No, Ryan touched on the similar question that I had, which is I wanted to, compliment you for, which is the world building and cultural building that was done in the episode, the totem, and the whole play, how Zach was telling Pike, he was stupid for believing in the totem mythology, but it was great because to me it was like culture building. It's like what we've seen with the Bajorans, what we've seen with other cultures that are thought out and well conceived. I totally bought this episode like from beginning to end. The Ortega scene where she's in in her quarters talking to the computer and just asking questions. And that's what I was thinking. I was like, if she just asks the right question,
right.
if she just says the right thing, it'll spark the memory that she needs, and it played out the way I wanted it to, and I was so cheering for her, and this gave her a big moment too, because we've been waiting for Ortegas to have like the save the day kind of hero storyline for her character,
Absolutely, yeah. Finding the Ortegas piece, I think, actually opened up the episode for us, because I think that was very early on. We were like, okay, we're going to Rigel, and Rigel's going to have a thing. At first, we were going to put Ortegas on the ground because we wanted to give her some story and we wanted to like feature her. And then I like to write A/B stories that are very clean, that are speaking to each other. I mean, I don't want to like give away secrets, but like if you watch a lot of the Memento Mori is sort of ABC. And I was, sort of pushing for a ship story, and some others in the room were like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And I know as I think it came from me. I don't like taking credit like that, but I will say I was like, you know what, let's give a Latin person a story, and so I was like, we got to do an Ortega story, and I think everyone was on board with that. So it really was a room idea, but finding that then allowed us to focus in on what she's doing and why, and then how the rocks are related to the memory loss, and the thing which is cool is like when you're the person who's saving the day all the time, saving the day becomes boring. That's sort of the story. It's you're the pilot that's getting us out of the mess. And so she's like, well, okay, I'm going to get you out of another mess. I'm going to fly another, and having someone who's lost their passion, like in her way, literally, because the memory goes to then refind it and it's rekindled in a major way. And then, be able to see that sort of position with fresh eyes. It's just fun,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to the actor's credit, I fly the ship. She just kept saying, "I fly the ship."
Yeah.
I fly the ship. It was one of those moments, where you look in the mirror. It's like she did her own little "you talking to me" moment.
Yeah. Oh, she had fun with that. You should see the dailies and the outtakes. Like we had her doing that like over and over, and she every time was different. Everything was different.
Yeah.
Which is what's fun about that. It's just sort of an organic, throwing yourself 100% into that moment, and not knowing who you are. And then it is the comedy of talking to the ship back and forth, and that's its own little like Abbott and Costello.
Hey lady, you still there?
yeah. And she played that so well, all that comedy, and
she played it excellent. Yeah. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Davy, and by the way, not just her giving her a little bit of love, and but we got the whole Latin connection. You've got Perez, you've got Ortegas, you've got Sanchez directing it. That's pretty nice. It's got to feel good.
Oh, Eduardo was awesome, man. Him and I would crack each other up so hard. We and it's funny, we were vibing so hard that I think one of the somebody, I think an AD or somebody was like, how long have you guys known each other? Like, how you guys have obviously worked on shit together before. And I'm like, I just met him in the van like 2 days ago, But it was
they just clicked.
You just clicked, and we just got each other's humor, and he was a lot of fun, and he sort of got the organic nature of like the visceralness of it, right? The being there and being tight, and sort of he moved the camera quite a bit and making you feel disoriented when you needed to, but then like locking in into a moment when the camera work and the audio work really also tell the story of what the characters are going through, and that was very much
especially during the time lapse moments when La'an, for example, with 6 hours missing, he would start in with a nice close up and a blurred background and pull back and gave you that sense like what just happened here. So Smart. He played with the camera a lot, and I respected the work that he did with amplifying the story.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even when if you go back and watch when Pike comes back to himself, when you're in that cathedral, the fight is really messy, and then all of a sudden he has a moment, and then you're in studio mode and you're locked off, and now you're in more traditional coverage. And he was talking me through that, and I was watching him do that, and I was like, that's great, brilliant, so he totally understood how the camera can help to really amplify everything, and
he did. It was a perfect compliment. There was a swooping shot across the bridge that he used to follow Spock and Uhura. There were some shots that he did that were really good, in my opinion.
I have my favorite shot. I don't know if you guys caught it. If you should go back and watch it. It's towards the end. It's when she's doing the maneuver. There's this really handsome science officer that does across the bridge. It's all the main cast, right? They're all there watching. He's this really good looking science officer who probably deserves his own spin-off. Crosses the bridge.
Really?
Yeah, I did not catch that.
Yeah. He's so good at his job that he's very unassuming, but he's I'm in love with them for sure.
You know what's great about that
it's gotta be
is
great.
Now everybody watching this, you just got yourself a second view on that episode.
Yeah, right.
Everybody's going to go back and rewatch the episode
up,
now.
Right?
That's how you do it. That's how you get those
that's how
second
you do
viewings.
it.
That's my Trek Hitchcock moment,
Oh, that's great.
Or M. Night Shyamalan, right?
I'll go with Hitchcock.
Probably right. But Davey, just want to say we really appreciate you joining us. This has been so much fun. We got a million questions for you, and we appreciate you answering all of them for us. This has been really great. You guys are killing it in a good way.
In a really good way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always great being here and talking with you guys about Trek, and have me back anytime. Throw all the questions at me, because I love to talk, and I just love the love that we are getting, and I'm humbled to be a part of it, and hope to keep delivering with everyone that I work with on those promises that we make.
The show's so fun to watch. You guys are every episode just knocking it out the park. It's been really a joy. And we just can't wait to see more episodes. So, we keep tuning in, because you keep delivering really good hours of TV for us. So keep it up, man. Keep it up.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we love doing it. And as long as there's space to explore, we'll be writing about it.
Space. Love it. Everybody at home, stick around. We will be right back. Davey, thank you so much. You're the best. Looking forward to many more. In 4 more episodes, you've got another one written. It seems as though that may be the case.
It is correct. It is called Under the Cloak of War, and it's episode 8 of season 2.
Oh my God! You just led me to my next question. I have one. I'm sorry, I got to sneak it in really quickly. The title of the episode, Among the Lotus Eaters, is that something that you choose? Is that something that you guys agree on together? How does the titles come together? Because I've been wanting to ask this question.
Yeah, no, the writers usually pick the titles, and I talked with Kirsten about that one, and she was cool with it. I think I want to remember. I had to explain it to somebody, and they thought that it was not a 1-for-1, but it wasn't Kristen. We were on board with it, because it's from the Odyssey, right? The Lotus Eaters that eat to forget, and the story there is kind of different, but I just like the idea of the forgetting and how that's related. So I want to say it was like a studio person that was like, I don't understand why it's called Among the Lotus Eaters, and we were like, well, that's what it's called.
Yeah. Well, now that gives us a little reference there, a little Odyssey reference.
Odyssey's great.
That is great to know. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
No problem.
Davey, and we hope to see you again real soon. Congratulations on really kicking ass for everybody to enjoy. We hope to see you soon. Everybody stick around. We will be right back with a lot more coverage of this episode on the 7th Rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
It is time for, and by the way, Davy Perez, awesome guy. I really appreciate having him.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit more about this episode right after these trivioids that go as follows. The Enterprise is currently assisting the USS Cayuga in a joint mission, charting a new binary system. Captain Pike and Captain Battelle are stealing a little personal time. The Enterprise lost 3 people at Rigel 7 5 years ago. More on that in a moment. The Enterprise left something behind at Rigel 7. They figured the comm badge, I think it was, or something similar to that, but it turned out to be a bunch of stuff. The Kalar are a Bronze Age society. Rigel 7 creates ringing in one's ears. La'an punches Pike. Ensign Uhura has oatmeal for breakfast every day, and Lieutenant Ortegas's quarters are all gold. That was cool. Everything was gold, except like the door, the window, a couple things were red. That was really interesting. Hey, so Cirroc, before we hit record, we were just talking about how great this episode was.
Yeah.
A bit more. So this came from, and this was something I wanted to ask, Davey a little bit more, but, we got to let people go at some point. Otherwise, we're just going to, because they're so fascinating. I love these guys. Everybody we have on our show from Strange New Worlds, has just been so freaking great to us. But
yeah,
this came from a slice of The Cage, the original pilot of the original series with Captain Pike, right? And I believe Captain that little singular episode that wasn't released until decades later, and it had Captain Pike, and that's what this whole thing is based off of. This whole show's based off of that one original pilot that was originally unaired, with Majel Roddenberry playing Una's role. So he mentioned at the beginning of that episode, or at some point in the episode, something about we just came back from a mission at Rigel 7. We sustained heavy losses. There was something like that. And then there was this moment that I showed for a second where he ends up, the thing mines his brain for his memory and brings him back to Rigel 7. And this is what those, Rigel 7, the Kalar, were based off of this guy. And it does kind of look, Mongolian or Siberian, something in that realm. So that's it.
Yeah.
They just have that little slice and they built a full episode from it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I haven't seen the original episode, so I didn't even know where the references were coming from. I just looked at this as a singular kind of standalone episode, and it held water for me.
Yeah. Well, they even gave us a little snippet so that you didn't have to have seen that episode, because it's not part of any series technically. I mean, they've got it tacked on to the original series in like IMDb and in other shows or another forum, but they explained everything we need to know. Like, they spent 20 seconds saying, oh, well, we went to Rigel 7 5 years ago and we lost 5 people. That's it. They covered it all for us. So you didn't have to have seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, it's still like, without even knowing all of that, they gave us a little bit of Pike love interest, with
Patel.
Captain Patel. That's something they've kind of visited before, right? And they're revisiting in this episode, if I'm not mistaken. Or...
Yes, this is like the third or fourth time. She was also in the episode like 2 episodes ago in the courtroom drama one. Then she was also in the very first episode, practically like the opening scene, back on Earth. And I feel like she may have been around in a 4th episode somewhere later in the first season.
Yeah. So it was a good callback because it does bring some, it shows a different side of Pike, when they were both in Pike's quarters, not trying to be interrupted. Pike's like, hey, don't interrupt me unless it's an emergency. Okay. And she was being interrupted also. So I just like the moment of kind of personal life, a glimpse into the personal window of somebody in off duty, not in their command post. So I like that. We talked about the medallion, the callback with the medallion. I thought it was a lovely callback. It was a great little play in this episode. And, Davey brought up for a second, but, I want to revisit it. We talked with Bernadette Croft, and he mentioned that as well. Yeah. But the costuming, I thought, was also spectacular.
Those tell
really
a story too, right? The costuming,
yeah.
The costumers are also storytellers, just like the location, managers. These people are also storytellers, and this is beautiful. The work that she did.
I thought so too. I was particularly blown away by the one that was designed for Ortegas. There was a beautiful green kind of leather, beautiful kind of look. And I thought the detailing was just amazing. The choice of similar fabric colors, but different textures was great. The cuts on the shoulder. This was my little rendition of Ortegas' costume. It kind of had like a samurai.
You had the hat right next to it too. That's cool.
Yeah,
you even had the hat right next.
The hat's key right there. But because the cut of the way the collar was done on Ortegas specifically, because they gave us some nice close-ups on that. It had a samurai type of feel to the neckline and to the jacket, right? It felt like she was ready to kick some ass, and I really liked that look, that tough leather kind of high boots, uh, shoulder guards, accented shoulder guards that come out, flaring out, tight necklines, and also 3/4 length coat designs.
Mm-hmm.
So just really, really cool stuff by their designer, Bernadette Croft.
Another thing I want to talk about, and we touched on it a little bit in the first segment, was the acting. And, really, the writers can only do so much. They can write a good story, but sometimes it's up to the actor to really pull it off. And what I thought that they really pulled off was the feeling of disorientation, of, kind of like you walk into the kitchen, you get there and you go, what was I coming in here for? There's that moment, and we've all had it, some more than others. Yeah. And, you're kind of like, wait, and you're like, come on, I was just thinking it 5 seconds ago. I came in here for something, or other times when you're just really tired and you're forgetting what you're talking about in mid-sentence, and you're aware that you're not really making sense, but you can't really save it. And they were doing such a great job of that disorientation. It reminded me of one time when I was in the hospital for a minor injury, and I just was so disoriented. And I was just like, I felt dumb. I felt like I couldn't really think. I couldn't really remember things. I found out later it's because my blood pressure was super low, but I didn't know that at the time. And then that causes all the disorientation, all that. But that's what it reminded me of. And the actors did such a great job of conveying that, you kind of got the fuzzy, the cobwebs, and you're not really fully there. It got to the point where I was watching them, I almost started to feel that way myself. I almost started to feel like I was getting forgetful too, man. It was just beautifully done. I wanted to make sure that we pointed that out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought that first La'an was the first one to experience it, and they had that kind of conversation. Well, we're 6 hours away. Should we turn back or set up camp here? And when she said, 6 hours had passed and she had not remembered the 6 hours, that was the first great acting as far as disorientation. I thought that sold me. But then she was like, no, let's keep going. And then Benga did a great job with it, with his facial expressions, and Pike was great with it. At one point they all woke up in the cage, and they didn't know who each other were, and I thought it was believable for me. So yeah, I feel like everybody really knocked it out of the park as far as the acting. Uhura had her moments, like I said earlier, where I felt like she was just great, giving us a great performance about what she was feeling and hearing. So yeah, we got some really great performances from all the actors in this episode.
Did we get an answer about whether they did bring Zacharias back? I mean, I know Pike said, we'll bring you back and let Starfleet, deal with you, or whatever it was. But we didn't actually see him coming back. And I was wondering, I mean, I'm sure they did bring him. Like, I'm sure that's the end of the story, because I'm always watching and waiting for that possibility of a Guinan character or a Neelix character or a Quark character, somebody that is not part of Starfleet, but is on the ship with them. It kind of gives them the, and so I thought, in Discovery, I thought Harry Mudd might be that guy. Like, they capture him and then he ends up kind of being stuck in the prison, but they talk to him, but they did, the brig, they never used that. So I kind of, pictured maybe Zacharias could be somebody they bring back and rehabilitate slowly, but I don't think we got any more information on him, did we?
I don't remember any more information. I think that they were going to bring him back, and then while they were waiting for him outside of the temple, that they forgot that he was even with them.
That would be funny.
So they left him out there.
They went back outside, and they're like, "What was I doing out here? I know I was coming out here for a reason. I guess there's just three of us. I don't know." And Zacharias is like, "Yeah." He's like hiding back. That's funny.
Yeah, they probably forgot again. It's funny because this is a completely non sequitur, but Pike has a moment when he says "Pike out," and I realize it doesn't sound particularly well for him to say it. I think he needs a different exit calling for his
like
name.
Psych out.
Yeah, I don't know. I kept thinking of Pike out poker. Pike out poker.
I don't know that one. Pike out.
Oh. It just didn't flow right to Pike out. So I think he needs like Pike gone or something else to end his conversations. Yeah. Pike off. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know. I meant it when I said that this felt to me like the most Star Trek episode of the series so far, just in that it felt like an original series story. Obviously, storytelling has improved over 60 years, or 57 years, but 59 since the original Cage movie or episode was made. But it has that heart of, just a mystery that unfolds, and these characters going over here to work on this thing. The B plot is over here, but it all kind of fits together. It just felt very reminiscent of the best aspects of the original series. What made the original series so beloved? This had that, I thought.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we always take note of the away teams that they assemble. This is the same thing. I was like, oh wow, this is the first combo. You got Pike and Benga and Lon. That's never been done before. Mm-hmm. This is a whole new away team combination. Right. So,
and that's why I love those combos. I feel like that gives you the best insights into character development and relationships, seeing how this group interacts and this duo or this triad. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah. And it gave us some new stuff too that we hadn't been, and Benga had a great line where it's like, doctors are not usually called for their fighting experiences or something to that effect. We also got a Star Trek nomenclature kind of thing in this episode, the Albanian Mariner's Keystone.
Oh, right.
That's
Albanian Mariner's Keystone.
Yeah. So they did one of their traditional name something Star Trek.
Was it Albanian or Albanian? They've used Albanian or Albanian.
No, I think it was Abalian. Yeah, Abalian.
Mariner's Keystone. That's a good one. Good catch. That's right. I remember them saying that.
Yeah.
And he recognized it right away. And we wouldn't. We'd be like, oh, this is it's a fucking
it's a rock.
It's a coaster, right? She's like, no, it's an Albanian Mariner's. Oh, Keystone, yeah. Yes. Oh boy, and I've been wanting one of these my whole life. Thank you.
Yes, because we've been using Mariner's Keystones for the last I don't know. But yeah, there was just right. That's a good one. Also, I like Spock's emotions are not facts. Kind of, he played that really well, in my opinion. His moments with Ortegas, he played really well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
a great line too. It's a great line coming from Spock. Emotions are not facts. Like if somebody says, "I feel this, I feel that," and he's like, "No, bro, that's not." However, they did use it a second time later on, which kind of made him, back down from that a little bit. He said emotions are not facts later on, but then he did end up backing down because Ortegas was saying she felt like she's the pilot, and he says his new favorite line. But then he was like, okay, maybe you're right. Okay, 1-1. We'll call it 1-1. Maybe you're right sometimes on this. So that was really good. Also, there are always these little arcs, mini arcs that are good to have.
And that's good writing to me, is when you play those things, those beats, and it's like, oh, they brought it up the first time, then here it comes again to bite Spock, and it comes to bite him. His same words. Now he's kind of got to trust her based on her emotions, and it's a whole different scenario now. So it's just those moments to me are just great writing. You call back something earlier. You give it to us in the beginning. We don't know when it's going to be used again or if it's going to come back again. But then here it comes again, and it slaps you right back in the face the other way across. So I think that this is one of the best episodes I've seen from Strange New World. It's up there.
I loved it. Also, we only have a couple minutes left, but I wanted to point out, again, the beautiful landscape and palace when they're on the planet. Production design is freaking amazing. I love looking at that stuff. I love seeing people conceptualize a planet or the interior of a ship or something, a building, a palace, and really kind of seeing it through and giving it its own flavor. And they did that so well there. They also did it well with Ortegas's quarters. I really liked, but just a big shout out to the production design team, because they bring it every single week. And, people talk about it. The fans talk about it sometimes. Most of the time they're talking about the episode of the week. It's good to give these people some love, because they are making this look like $1 million every time.
Yeah. And in that same vein, I want to also, compliment the way the little shuttle runabout that they used. The interior of that was really great. And the purple hues that they used for the exterior of the planet, as they were coming into that planet's surface, they had this nice purpley kind of hue with the background of the sky and the graphics. So I thought that was also great. And then the whole castle kind of, compound where King Zachary was staying,
By the way, you and I are both wearing purple today in honor of that purple hue.
Absolutely. And that also reminded me, give me some Game of Thrones vibe, with the cage and the castle, with the, big gate in the front with the Federation logo on it. It had like a futuristic Game of Thrones type of space colony vibe.
Love it. Futuristic Game of Thrones, everybody. Only on Star Trek Strange New World. Well, let's give a very special thanks to a few people, some of our favorite people in the whole world. Their names are Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arukin, Darlena Marie, Titus Muller, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Neil Akasaka. Love it. Carrie Schwent, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Justine Norton Kurtzen, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Live from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manisfee, Marcia Classic Schreier, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Okun. Very quickly, something I almost forgot to mention here was our good buddy Don Crandall sent in a few things. Check these out for our viewing pleasure. This is from the original Cage, the original episode that this was pulled from, the original pilot, The Cage. There was this here.
Purples.
Oh, that's not it. Oh yeah, here we go. This is more of it here. So this was Captain Pike here fighting the Kalar. guy. And yeah, this is what the guy looked like. So anyway, that's from Mr. Don Crandall. Thanks very much, Don Crandall, for all of those images. And I guess that's about it for us, right?
Yeah. We brought back the K-Lars.
Finally, right? It only took 59 years. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Please make sure you like this video. Give us a 5-star rating if you're listening in. Subscribe to the channel and the podcast. Make sure you hit that share button and send it out to all of your pals if you can. And leave us some comments below. Tell us what we missed. Tell us what you loved. Tell us what you hated. Tell someone else what you hated. Fuck that. And thank you very much for joining us. Until next time, we'll see you then. Always remember the 7th rule.